Hi, this is Marina from Darkstar Astrology, bringing you the September forecast. Now, this is my whole new sort of setup, so I hope it kind of works. First of all, I want to have a look at Mars retrograde because we're still, well, it's actually stationing direct right this minute as I record it, and this is August the 27th. It's stationing, and it's actually stationing on its exaltation degree. So it's a really powerful position for Mars to be in. Also, Mars is exalted in Capricorn anyway. So it's being very powerful as a retrograde, even though it's in retrograde. And I think how I've sort of thought that it might be working is like Pluto, basically. It is a richer bake, and as it's been going retrograde, the whole thing of what happens when Mars goes retrograde, which is usually relationships that it can bring back old flames. It can also pull you into the underworld, basically, where you don't know if you're being manipulated or not. And also they do say not to start court cases when Mars is in retrograde, because if you do, then you'll lose. So there's all these different interpretations of Mars retrograde. But I think the one that's dawned on me really, that's come up very strongly, is the whole thing of narcissism and how it's such a Plutonic trait, because it's all about power. And it is the Persephone myth, and it is abducting somebody and vamping off them and pulling them into the underworld, because Pluto himself was dead. And narcissists don't have an inner life. They don't seem to be able to entertain themselves almost, you know. They need to be entertained all the time. So they create dramas around them. And I think this Mars retrograde has brought those themes up. So what I'm going to have a look at is where we are with it, because basically, let's go back to May, because May, Mars actually hit went into shadow on the 11th of May. So any relationships that started around then, not when it actually went retrograde, but even in the shadow period, I think will be affected by this. Because those degrees are going to be gone over 3 or 4 times. So 3 times, sorry. So, you know, they're getting hit a lot. So, and now the thing is, it's also not going to get out of the shadow period until October the 6th. So things might come back to haunt you from this whole Mars retrograde thing. And my story that I think if you've been watching my moon videos, will know that, yeah, I had an old flame that came back. He was actually my very first love when I was 16, 17, 18. So, yeah, and yesterday I got to the point where I actually I just thought, I've got to block him. That's the only way. I did try and finish it the normal way, but it didn't happen, because these people have a way of coming back to you. And for a long time, I sort of thought he might be ADHD, but the more I look into the whole narcissism thing, the more I have to sadly admit that that's probably what's happened. So anyway, I don't want to go too much into that. That might be a whole other video. But what I wanted to look at was what Mars was actually doing in those degrees. So while it was there, so at the moment it's in Capricorn, where it's very strong, and it was also in Aquarius as well. Now in Capricorn, I haven't actually written Mars in decan 3 of Capricorn at all, but I haven't got around to that yet, sorry. So I can't read you Mars in decan 3 Capricorn, but what I can look at is what Capricorn decan 3 means generally. And I mean, I called this the all-seeing eyes, because it is it combines, I mean, its general meaning is artistic and musical ability with great business mind as well, aspirational and these people do think very highly of themselves as well. It does sound a little bit narcissistic too. But sorry, no, actually, what I wrote about these is these arty goats are aspirational and think very highly of themselves, but don't brag about their talents. And they're far too elegant for that type of brash behaviour. Now, another thing about it is that Capricorn Decan 3 knows they come from a higher place, whether it's a royal castle, a spiritual mountain, or even an alien starship. They feel connected to the gods up there and can equally feel the same connection with spirituality in nature as well. And they have an all-seeing eye and an elevated perspective and great vision. So I think during this Mars retrograde, there's been a need to, because of the theme of the whole narcissism and how the whole Pluto Persephone myth plays into narcissism, and how Plutos are attracted to Persephone types, which are highly sensitive people. And these highly sensitive people, I mean, this is weird. It's like, why does a highly sensitive person not realize these people are narcissists? Because, and this is the weird paradox, is that they look into that, they can see sort of into their soul, and they don't see the narcissism at first. They just see a spiritual being, you know. And so what happens, it is that compassion that is their downfall, because they see people suffering in the underworld. That's their knee-jerk reaction is help them, fix them, help them. But the only thing is that normally Persephones have grown up with a narcissistic mother as well. That is Ceres. So they have been gaslit all their lives, and that means that they don't trust their body telling them when there's danger, and they think, oh, I'm being paranoid, or I'm mad, or something like that. But really, this is how I learned about whether it was just better for me to go no contact with the ex in the end, because all this thing, like giving the benefit of the doubt, thinking, oh, maybe it's ADHD, whatever. The thing is, I wasn't feeling right. My body, I was on edge all the time. I didn't know when he was going to ring or when he wasn't going to ring. When I needed to speak to him, he was never around. It was just being on edge all the time. And so I thought, and there was a knot in my stomach all the time. And now I know that it was the right thing to do, was because after 2 days of no contact, my energy's back. So that's the vampire. That's what Pluto is. And this Mars retrograde, I think, has acted like anyone that's had this Mars retrograde aspect their personal planets has felt this like a Pluto transit, like it's kind of speeded up Pluto transit, because usually Pluto transits are very slow. So, yeah, and this is exactly what's happened. So what I also wanted to say about the fact that it's in Capricorn Decan 3, like one of the negative traits of Capricorn Decan 3 is that, they can be, this is also what I wrote about it, incredibly cunning. They play with words and are delightful storytellers. Now, this is one of the things that won me over, was storytelling. Amazing, just amazing storytelling that keeps you mesmerized and you're just going, wow. But this makes them brilliant liars. They can spin a yarn, draw you in, and before you know it, you're caught in their spider web of fables. Oh my God. They're like a living, breathing, historical soap opera. Their love life is a cliffhanger and you're always left wanting more. Wow. See, I haven't read this since the relationship, and it's really true. On the good side, they are in touch with nature and its myths, and also passing down stories around the fire, and passing down the stories of generations gone past. So, there's always a good and a bad side, but it's very interesting about the storytelling, because that was something that came up very, very strongly. And that was another thing, when I started being blinded by has he got ADHD? No, lies. I found out lies, like big, whopping, giant lies. So when it's lies, Not like little white lies that, you know, children might say, like, no, I didn't eat the biscuits. No, big, major lies. So when you get the big, major lies, run away. Run away. All right. So now the thing with this Mars retrograde as well, part of it was in Aquarius. It will get to 0 degrees Aquarius in September, and this is going to be the whole shadow. It'll just be reviewing everything that went on, and when it gets to Altair, like Mars on Altair is going to be interesting, because Altair is the eagle, and the eagle can see from a great height and can look down at things from a distance. And I think that's when everyone who's been messed up by this Mars retrograde will just breathe a sigh of relief and go, okay, now I can see. So Mars on Altair, the eagle, is sharp mind, trouble through friends, society and companies, but eventual gain. So, okay. And then that was Robson's interpretation. Bernadette Brady says, to be daring and at times take rash action, telling me, to be drawn by the military or to use a military style approach to problem solving, to attack or to go to war or act bravely. So bravely to me is also going no contact from a narcissist, because it's like going cold turkey off heroin. It really is, because of the love bombing that you get in the beginning. And if you go back to it, it's quite interesting if you have it all on like WhatsApp and you go back to it and you go, oh my God. It was like, it's the storytelling of Oscar winning moments. Anyway, so Mars in Aquarius Decan 1, it's back in July. So around, this is probably when you were sort of flying high as an eagle in the sky and thinking it was all just bliss, man. Yeah, so that was basically the whole of July, and blimey, the whole of June as well. Oh yeah. Okay, yeah, so the summer of being high as a kite, and we did have a lot of kites as well, didn't we, in the sky, as in aspect patterns. So Mars in Aquarius 1, it's peregrine normally in this decan, so it cannot act as well as it should. So it's probably when it cannot act as well as it should, it's basically saying that it can work in a malefic way, really. The problem is that the decan is pretty rebellious and feisty at the best of times. So we end up with a very disruptive rebel without a cause. So, you know, it's like almost you rebel against your higher self, saying, I don't care if he's a bad boy. I don't care. I'm just going to do it anyway. And you're all against me. You all hate me. Yeah. So that's what you do. This position may act up out of frustration because they themselves feel powerless to take control of their own lives, which could be describing the narcissist as well. It also sets impossibly high ideals, which make them feel like failures when they don't match up to them. When the subject is prepared to take advice and assistance or work with other more grounded people, success is very possible. So yeah, it is like, and this has been the whole retrograde story, is ask advice, get an objective pair of eyes about it. You know, it's an impulsive position, and I think it does explain why some people took very impulsive jumps into relationships during this time and while it was in Decan 1. But now it's in Capricorn, and I think you can feel that it's, especially now that it's going direct, when it entered Capricorn, I think things started, you know, the rose-tinted glasses started falling off. So when was that? The 13th of this month. So that's, I think, when a lot of people started going, something not quite right here. Yeah, so, and also because there was Mercury retrograde as well. Yeah, the overlap, here we go, sorry. The overlap when Mars went into Capricorn and could see things, I think, with a bit more groundedness and realism. and Mercury. But Mercury was still retrograde. So I think a lot of people, including myself, thought, well, Mercury's retrograde. It could be just misunderstanding things. And let's just wait for it to go direct and then we'll really know. But really, all that it happened was when Mercury went direct, it was like, oh, yeah, worst fears. It just, yeah, the truth, the glasses really did, the rose-tinted glasses fell off the eyes and smashed on the floor, basically, by then. So that was the whole Mars retrograde. And I think, when it gets back to, I think we have to be a bit careful in September, because it will go back into Aquarius again, decan 1, where it can be a bit impulsive and foolhardy. But hopefully by then you're just flying high as an eagle and you've got rid of the difficult relationship. That might be what happens. And the danger period, I think, will be Mars will be out of the shadow by October the 7th. So that'll be probably closure. All right. So what I also wanted to do was just look at what's going on in September generally, because that was a sort of recap, but it's important to recap it because really the recap's going to be going on during September, like I said, because Mars is going to be going over those degrees again. Looking at the chart for September, I mean, the planets are all over the place really, but there's still a lot going on in Capricorn because then Mars moves into Aquarius, but of course we've got Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn still as long-term transits. Venus goes into Scorpio, which is its kind of fall detriment on September the 9th. And I think that may be a time where we do feel kind of insecure about love relationships because it's not strong there. But Mars is stronger in Capricorn. And you get this T-square actually. September the September the 11th, which I think leaves a bit of a scar on the collective soul, that date. You'll get Mars square Venus square Uranus, and I think that might be some sort of a traumatic time in terms of relationships. You may find something out that you just didn't want to know, and bear in mind, Mars is still in the shadow as well. So the truth, maybe you thought that there was nothing more you could find out about this Mars retrograde romance, but there may well be more stuff that comes out, and then maybe you'll be glad that you did finish it when you did. And if you haven't, if you've sort of gone back to the narcissist, this will be, I think, when you realise, no, run away. So there's that. There's Mars with Lilith as well, September the 17th. So that's more kind of dark Cupid relationship stuff. Venus will be squaring the nodes. Oh, one thing to mention too is that Venus is now in the shadow period for her retrograde. So my God, this year has been retrograde mania, really, hasn't it? So Venus goes into the shadow 3rd of September. So I'll talk about Venus retrograde in another in October's forecast, because we've really had enough of retrogrades, I think. One of the big aspect patterns in September is the Uranus trine Saturn. I will talk about this. The tele-microscope pattern. So the part of that tele-microscope pattern, which you can see on the screen, I will put it up there, is that you've got basically what looks like a triangle with its capstone sliced off, and the two planets at the top are the two malefics. So we've got Saturn and Mars, And they are a very critical lens to be looking down into the microscope. And it looks like a microscope when the small part of the triangle is at the top. So, and you will see this because I'm going to go through all the monthly horoscopes, and you'll see where it falls on your chart. So that's the viewfinder. So if it's pointing down, that's a microscope. And the microscope will basically, everything that you're looking at will be blown out of proportion at times. So it may be that you do blow things out of proportion, but it also gives you a really good opportunity to study things in great detail too. So it is very nitpicky. It is looking at things like that. And the bottom part is basically between Uranus going across to Mercury, which is great because again, it's Mercury. Mercury is about analyzing things. Okay, let's look at the tele-microscope pattern. So yeah, it's September the 23rd. It really comes into effect. When it's the other way around, you're basically looking upwards. So it is the telescope, and you're looking at a critical eye up into the heavens and doing some astrology, serious astrology. Taking a more sort of eagle eye, which kind of goes with the Altair Mars as well. By the way, I'm using the aspect patterns as defined by the Huber School. Here it is. It's great, and it's got all these. Look how many. Look how many there are. Millions. Well, not millions, but you know. So yeah, there's quite a lot to say the least, and so yeah, the tele-microscope. If you have this in your chart, the person is curious and wants to know, but is not defensive. Instead, he dares to use and test the possibilities of the green aspects. This gives rise to the magnifying glass effect, allowing things to get out of proportion. The best possible applications are obtained by very accurate observation. The figure can be used in both ways in any location. So this month we have the opportunity to get the balance between nitpicking in our lives or distancing ourselves so much that we cannot see the granularity and everything becomes very black or white, or very good guy, bad guy. Otherwise, the planets are pretty much behaving themselves this month, and there are no personal planet retrogrades as well. Oh yeah, just forgot to mention Saturn also turns direct on the 6th, which means can start to move forward with their foundation building without any more karmic interference or obstacles. And yeah, it's been very karmic for Capricorn and Aquarius and those who have them rising, because your whole chart's going to be ruled by Saturn. So yeah, so let's have a look at what it means individually for each sign. So I'm going to go through all the signs now, and sorry if this is a bit long-winded in your Pisces and you have to wait. Patience. So, starting with Aries, the tele-microscope will work for you as giving you a very magnifying effect on the home front. So, suddenly any little domestic irritations are blown up out of all proportion. Be careful you don't make rash decisions to suddenly leave home or throw someone out. Little things like a partner's snoring may really rub you up the wrong way. Now, the two malefics are the focusing element, as I said before, so they're liable to be overly critical with people that you live with. If you're traveling, you might find your hotel accommodation really uncomfortable or irritating in some way. And the best way to use this nitpicking energy is to do a huge spring clean of your house and get rid of all that useless junk or items that you haven't used in the last 2 years. You should also have a hyper focus for dust and dirt, so everything should be super hygienic by the end of the month. So Taurus, the tele-microscope will give you a very strong magnifying effect on your neighborhoods and siblings if you have any. Be careful of making a mountain out of a molehill when it comes to disagreements with your siblings, or even a friend who's as close as a sibling. You might find your neighbours irritate you more than usual, or So, for example, their DIY hammering and banging seems like you've got a permanent drill piercing through your head. So get a pair of fancy headphones and grit your teeth for the next few days. On the positive side, however, you will find that this time is perfect for intense study or revision of any exams. You might have to find a quiet library, though, if you've got the noisy neighbours. This is a superb time for using your highly focused mind for research. And if you really do possess a microscope, then of course this is the ideal time to get stuck in looking at microbes. So Gemini, what can you do with yours? Now this has a strong magnifying effect on your cash flow and self-esteem. If you are having financial woes, then this is a time to have a good look at your accounts and weed out any unnecessary expenses. If you run your own business, look at your social media stats and any long-term graphs of how your products are faring. This is the month that you will actually have the patience to pick apart what works and what doesn't. And you'll also make the connection between actions that you thought were unrelated to any downturns with actions that actually brought success. If your self-esteem has taken a battering these last few months, this is also a fantastic time to wade through that mountain of self-help books. It's a great time to connect with what's triggering you to repeat negative and self-sabotaging behavior patterns. So, Cancer, with you, the tele-microscope will have a very strong magnifying effect on your physical body. So you could find a fault with every little mole or wrinkle or body part, and you will not be able to see the totality of your whole wonderfulness. Do not despair and spend time with people who don't criticize you or put you down in any way. Otherwise, you're likely to get highly offended at any throwaway comments they make. You could also take far too personally comments on social media also. So this could be a really good month to do a Facebook, Twitter, Instagram detox. This might be also a good time to get regular body maintenance sorted out. So things like eye tests, smear tests, dental hygienists, waxing, haircuts, or beard tidying is a good time for this month. Maybe clothes buying should be put off next month, as your bum certainly will look big in anything you try on. Yes, magnifying. Now, Leo will have a very strong telescope effect in the area of metaphysics and spirituality. So this would be a perfect time to actually get yourself a telescope and go out stargazing. You will feel very connected to the cosmos and be able to have that wider perspective that connects many different religions from different cultures together. This is a perfect time for looking at the world as one, but at the same time, you must guard against getting too globalist and allow for the fact that certain communities may not view social norms the same way as you do. Misunderstandings can happen if you don't respect the need for people to have their own identities and habits. And this may be quite a good month to be a hermit or go on a spiritual retreat, as it will be very hard to feel grounded and get on with normal earthly routines like shopping and domestic duties. Virgo, you're going to have a telescope effect in the area of friendships and wishes. It will be hard to devote yourself to any one friend during this time, and you will find anyone who tries to own you will be experienced as very annoying indeed. At the end of September, you are the social butterfly, and it will be best to avoid one-to-ones and instead go to large events. If you're usually insecure about large gatherings, you might actually be pleasantly surprised at how you're able to go with the flow and flit from one person to another effortlessly. Somehow you can switch topics quite easily and fit in anywhere. You'll also be able to see where your hopes and dreams fall in the greater scheme of things. And this also will be a good time to daydream and imagine the most outlandish adventures possible. Soar like an eagle and don't get caught in any bickering, gossip or office politics. Libra, you will have a very strong telescope effect in the area of your career and life calling. You'll be able to distance yourself from any office gossip and politics and just see where your actual talents lie within the sphere of your expertise as a whole. If you don't feel like you fit in anymore, it might be time to look further afield and take a step back from working for a while. Take a deep breath and prise your head away from the computer screen and look at totally different options. Maybe you want to go international, or maybe you feel like a big fish in a small pond and it's just getting too cramped for you. Whatever you do, don't get tangled up in very detailed fiddly projects. And it's really not the time for looking at small print and complex research. You won't have the patience, and it will feel like you're trying to get a splinter out of your thumb while wearing your driving glasses. Scorpio, the tele-microscope will have a very strong telescope effect on the area of travel and foreigners. It will be as if the telescope is perched on the bow of a ship as you gaze longingly at the hazy blue yonder ahead. You're very likely to ignore the smelly streets and unhygienic plumbing, and instead fall for the glossy brochure blurbs. It's also likely that in your romantic zeal to jump onto the nearest plane, you might forget to pack suitable clothing, important medication, or your phone charger. The wanderlust you feel is causing you to look at the world in soft focus, and that goes for all ninth house matters like foreigners, gurus, higher education, and religious cults. So make sure you try before you buy and go prepared. It's not to say that you shouldn't travel at this time. Just make sure that you travel with a responsible adult or employ a tour guide. Sagittarius, you will have a very strong telescope effect looking into the esoteric realms of the cosmos. In this case, it's as above, so below. So you will make connections between your self-esteem and what kind of toxic relationships you've had or are currently experiencing. You may have to consider looking at your partner's finances from a long-term point of view if you're having disagreements on how they are managing their money currently. It may seem that they're being reckless, but sometimes you have to take a leap of faith, and that is what they may be doing. If you're single, then you will have to stand back and look at how the general economy is affecting your own business. And if economics bores the pants of you, then it would be better to fall into the underworld of myth and magic, as you will be able to see the commonalities between the different religions and cultures all over the world. Your eagle eyes will give you a greater perspective over the different archetypes within human nature and how they are classified in psychology. Capricorn. The tele-microscope will give you a very strong telescope effect in the area of your relationships or marriage. You'll be able to see what your union means within the greater scheme of things. Have you been too focused on just getting the bills paid and not seeing the deeper value of being in a long-term relationship? Do you as a pair have an important mission as a couple? And that doesn't have to be something grandiose like saving the planet. No, it can simply mean providing a safe haven for friends who are down on their luck, or opening a cozy bed and breakfast, or just being great parents to the future generation. You might see that although you might have been having niggles or even quite major rows here and there lately, compared to some of the lonely folk around you, you're actually very much blessed to be in the family that you have. You might take this time off to spend some healing and bonding time with your beloved. And if you're single, then go out and play the field. You should have quite a few offers, but the Mars semi-sextile Saturn spy hole will filter out those time wasters. So that's useful. Aquarius, you will be getting a very strong magnifying effect on the area of your employment, daily routines and health. This is a great time to organise your diary and figure out how to get a healthy work-life balance. You could get quite nitpicky over what you eat and go over the top with buying new vitamin supplements. Be careful you don't fall for the latest superfood fad. It's easy to forget that we take in toxins from people, places, and computer screens. It's no good being ultra organic and discerning with food while forever binging on some trashy Netflix mini-series. Occasionally, escaping with these TV dramas and tub of Ben & Jerry's is fine, but like with your food diet, there has to be a balance. You might be extremely critical of your employees, if you have any, or your co-workers at this time, and it would be best to work from home or wear headphones while you work, because you will find the habits of those around you hyper annoying. However, if you need to lay off those who are not pulling their weight in your company or in any social groups that you run, you will find it very easy to spot the weakest link. And finally, Pisces. The tele-microscope will give you a very strong magnifying effect on the area of leisure, children and love affairs. Kids seem ultra loud and hyperactive. Your lover appears to be snoring louder than usual, and all you want to do is lock yourself away in a spare room to make tiny origami animals or something suitably fiddly. Make sure you make use of the early parts of the month to do something romantic or fun with your family. That way, when you get obsessed with fussing over details, they won't feel abandoned. On the positive side, if you're a boffin type, you could actually combine the influence of all three and take your kids and partner to the Science Museum. If your partner does not snore, then this is a great opportunity to hyper-focus on the sexual side of the relationship. Get yourself a copy of the Kama Sutra and try every single position. If you're not agile enough, then this is a good time to start a hobby that will keep you both happy, healthy, and horny. Studying such tantric books will also support Venus, which is in your 9th house too. That brings me to the end. Thanks for watching. Please come to Darkstar Astrology if you want more detailed horoscopes. I just gave you a bit of a snippet for these ones. I'm going to do this every month now, I think, because it seemed to be quite easy to do. If you like it, don't forget to like and subscribe. And also, if you want to see more of this stuff, be really appreciated if you contribute or donate via Patreon as well, as I have a Patreon account. All right then, all the best. Have a great September. Bye-bye.